What's happening? Welcome back to another episode of the Account for Your Life podcast. I'm Jay Moore, the Healthy Accountant, helping you to account for your life. Today on the podcast, here's what I want to jump into: unlocking the infinite you. Infinite, like what is infinite? Infinite is like going beyond. Infinite is more than. Infinite is abundance. Infinite is no end. Infinite keeps going, unlocking that part of you. Now, the question someone would have is, man, like that seems cool, but really, how is that possible? How can I be infinite? If you're a believer, if you're a believer and you actually believe that there is a God, if you are a person that believes there is a creator of this universe, then you should know that there's an infinite version of you available to you right now. Would you like to unlock that person today? Let's get started by unlocking you today. All right, man. Look, guys, I'm super excited for life. Look, why am I excited? I don't know. It's something about the mornings. It's something about the inspiration. It's something about the newness of the day. Almost like, wow, I can't believe I'm here again. And it wasn't always this way. Guys, it was not always this way. I was not always inspired. I was not always thinking positive. And sometimes I'm not always positive. I'm still working on that. I wasn't always the kind of person that would want to share my ideas until one day. One day something happened. What was that day that happened? I'm going to share with you something that you may be familiar with or you may not be familiar, but I knew something was being unlocked. We almost lost you for a second. But it was so interesting. And, it's one of these days where, have you ever been to church? Have you ever been to church and pastor gave a really good message. And in that message, hold on a second. Yeah. Sorry. I know, right? I had to go turn that phone off. But pastor gives a really good message. And then they make an altar call. Have you ever had that experience, right? And most people, if you're a Christian, if you're someone who goes to church and you've had preaching, then you know that you've experienced a moment where you wanted to or you did it, where you got up out of your seat and went down to where the pastor was. And it's an experience, right? Because what happens in that experience? Something happens. It's almost like you show other people that you're thinking something. And you show other people that, man, I think I'm vulnerable right now. I think that there's something, I think there's something off and I need to get back on. See, this process that people go to church and people give their hearts to God, that's kind of what they say. You have to give your heart to the Lord. When people do this, what they're saying is, I would like to unlock the infinite version of myself. I would like to become better. I would like to become the person that maybe God said that I am. I'd like to become something more. And I'm not connected to that. And so we go through the process. We say we're turning over our life to the power of God. This could have been on a Saturday. It could have been on a Sunday, because those are the days that folks go to church, right? It's like the main days. And Sunday, Monday, whatever day it was, the next day, the following day, something usually happened that disconnects us from that feeling that we had. So I've been to that a few times. Literally, I've been baptized a few times. I'm sure I'd stood up hundreds of times, rededicating myself because I just felt like I was disconnected. Until one day, I was not in church. There was no message. There was no altar call. There was no inspiration or motivation. I'm going to tell you what the motivation was, or that day. I'm going to tell you what it was. It was frustration, not motivation. I was frustrated. Have you ever been frustrated with your life? Have you ever been frustrated? Seriously, like answer the question. Have you ever been frustrated with your life? Some part of your life is frustrating. And I was frustrated. At the time, I was frustrated with money. I'm frustrated. I'm like, come on, like seriously. It feels like I should be further on. I'm not. And I was fed up. I just was like, well, you know what? If it's not working this way, then maybe there's another way to work. So I just said, all right, I'm in the office. You may have heard this story if you've been around for a while. I'm in the office and I just turned it over. It says, it's yours. Whatever you desire, it's yours. I'll give you the whole life in exchange for my life. So I gave over my life in exchange for the life that God already had for me. And I can remember that day. There was no inspiration. It wasn't like I got super excited because at the end of it was kind of like, well, what do I do next? Because remember, God's not with you. God is not here. It's not like you can literally talk to a person that's literally guiding, even though God does that. It's just that you have to become super aware at this point. Remember when we talked about last week, suspending your beliefs, suspend all your beliefs, you have to become aware. And so in the process, when you turn your life over to God, the creator of this universe, you have to become aware of his voice now. You have to become aware of his voice. And I had to learn how to hear him and listen to him, to understand who God is and how that relates to me, how that relates to you. Like, who is God in you? And so what happens is we have all these misconceptions about who God is, fairy tales, and God is out there. God is up in heaven, and man, I got to get there. And God's like, bro, I've been with you the whole time. Stop thinking about me where I'm somewhere else. Start thinking about me as being literally with you all the time. Now, you've heard this before. You've heard this. God is with you. He says, no, seriously. You gotta assume you are me. Wait a second. He said, assume you. He says, I had to assume that he is me and I'm him. I heard one scholar say this, and here's what the scholar said. I love smart people, or people, I wouldn't call them smart, people that just are obsessed with what they want to know. And he said this. He said, it's kind of like, think of God, that being the creator of the universe, like, it's kind of like, if we think about computers and all the stuff and how humans act, God is the bigger version of us. And so when you think about the data collection, God is out. The creative universe is collecting data through every single person on the planet. He's collecting data. And he's collecting data from experiences. He's collecting data from environments. He's collecting data wherever you are. And so what happens is the God of the universe can see through everybody. He can see everything. He knows everything because he's created it all. And so he's collecting all this data, and there's something that each of us have to do. And what he's trying to see, man, are they going to do it? A lot of times it's like, no, they're not going to do it. A lot of times they're not going to do it. But what if they do it? So they're on it. And so when we think of the God of the universe, it's kind of like, the God of the universe is like, yo, look, if you could really understand that I am you and you are me, we're just a small aspect. Think about how small it is. If there's 8 billion people, if there's literally 8 billion people on the planet, there's an aspect. There's an aspect of God in each and every one of us. So how does one unlock the infinite version of themselves? I just told you. So you have to turn over yourself to that version of yourself. You gotta desire the unlimited nature of yourself. You have to desire that first. You have to make a decision to become something that you've never become. And sometimes you're going to become something that you can't necessarily see. You don't actually know what's coming, but you can point yourself. What happens is you can point yourself in a direction that takes you ultimately where you should be. Just takes you there. Look at these books, that have sitting on my desk. I have these 3 books that literally was in my body. 3 books was in my body. 3 books was a part of me. And I don't even know anymore. But they were in my body the whole time I've been on the planet. Like the whole time. So it's kind of like, man, if I really knew what that version was, how fast could I have gotten to these 3 books? These 3, I couldn't have. I could only have gotten to these 3 books based on the time period that I've already been living. See, sometimes we want to project backwards and say, well, what if I changed this, that, and the third? Then it's not going to be the same. I'm not saying I wouldn't have books. What I'm saying is it wouldn't be these 3. It probably wouldn't be the exact way. Because imagine if you got better faster, then that means that something's going to be different. So it's kind of like there are alternative realities. There are alternative realities that we all can experience when things go a different way. It's just that you just don't really know what the differences would be. So I wouldn't know what would have been produced had I found out what I knew at 40. Had I made a decision at 30, the same decision I made at 40, if I made it at 30, I don't know. I don't know what my life would be. I have no idea what my life would be. But you know what? That's not for me to even understand. Back in September of, it was around September of 23. There was God told me to write a book. And it was interesting. Now, look at this. Here's a book, right? God tells me to write a book. And I'm like, okay, what do I write it on? And when I thought about it, I said, oh, the transformation of you to infinity. That would have been the title. Then after I recorded, it took me some time. I outlined it, did some recordings. And then after I did the recordings, I'm trying to figure out, what's going to be. Got somebody working with me, kind of like edited a little bit, and then looked over it. I was saying, well, maybe this is something different. Maybe it's the biblical transformation secrets, the transformation of you to infinity. And so, I even played around with ChatGPT a little bit to see how that would, that could, do something with it. I used it, but then just kind of held up, sent it to a publisher that we kind of talked about it. But the book held. The book didn't go anywhere. And I thought the book was going to, I finished the book towards the end of 2023. I finished the book in December. So it was ready to do something in January, but nothing. Nothing happened. But it was March. Something happened. Something triggered. See, sometimes God will have you do something. This is so interesting. God will have you do something. You think you're doing it, and then he comes back with something else. So God had me do that. I went on that exercise. I still have that manuscript. Went on that exercise. And then March, I got an offer to write another book. And it was more geared towards writing a book for business. If you write this book, maybe the person said, you could 10x your business. I was like, that's interesting. And God said, go for it. Do that. And that's interesting because I didn't know that book was in me. I didn't know. See, we're talking about infinite you. I didn't know that this book was already trapped in me and I had not let it out. At that point, God had to use a third party to literally act on me. That third party said something that would resonate with me so that then I can move towards this transformation of you to infinity. Move towards unlocking the infinite you. Literally, I had to move towards unlocking the infinite you by hearing God's voice when he said, go for that. Don't worry about how much it costs. See, because that's usually a lot. Have you ever, think about this, have you ever wondered, it's kind of like, you want something and then next thing you know, you see the price like, oh man. It's interesting. That particular day was just like, I just knew I had a resource that I'd be able to use in order to get it. And I went for it. What does that mean? So what it means is sometimes what God does is to unlock you. He sends you down a path that you're not totally unaware of what God is doing, but at the same time, he is preparing the unlocking. He's preparing the way. He's pulling strings. It's just that before we know what string God is pulling, before we know what strings he's pulling, we have to take the first and the next step. That's how God operates. God is interesting, man. The creator of the universe is something else. And I'm excited. I'm super excited. Why? Because I've been at this for some time, and I'll be honest. Like some days I'm like, man, I don't feel like it. I don't want to. Until I'm like, well, I can't not do it. Every now and then I take a day off, but I can't not do it because at the very least, it's an inspiring word for myself. It's kind of selfish. It's kind of selfish. Until it's an inspiring word for more people. I heard one of my coaches say something recently. He said, you have to be significant before you can be influential. And the significant is where people watch you, right? People watch you. I know people watch you. People watch until you have influence when they want to hear from you. And that's a totally different thing. But here's the thing. Wouldn't God want you to be influential? Influential comes with a price. Having influence comes with a price, because when you have influence, things may not always be easy and simple, but if you would like to unlock the infinite part of you, this is where you can find it. It's in your mind. It's in your body. It's in your experience. It's in you. If you can become more aware of the version of yourself that you see, because at the end of the day, you have to first see it. The version of yourself that you see that is powerful, that's amazing, that's infinite. I would say move towards it. If you move towards that version of yourself, I can say with certainty that you would unlock the infinite you. You would become significant. And by staying with it, you will become influential. I know that. I'm in my phase of building influence, real influence. So God is good and God is great. And God will do far more than you can ask or imagine through the power that worketh in you by unlocking the infinite version of yourself. So guys, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of the Account for Life podcast. Look, today at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, with whatever time zone that is for you, we will be actually going live again, where I'll be bringing on my publisher, Daniela Ordonez, who will be sharing about writing books and helping people and making an impact and using the power of a story to help someone start a business, grow a business, create influence, build a ministry, whatever it is. She's going to break down that stuff. We're going to have a conversation as authors, and it's going to be an amazing conversation. Be sure to be back here on this channel and catch the replay if you can't make it live. But that's at 10:30 a.m. today, June the 12th, 2024, where we'll be discussing telling your story to start, grow a business, or building influence for whatever whatever it is you would like to do. Guys, I appreciate you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. God bless, and I'll see you soon. Peace.
This has been the Account for Your Life podcast with your host, the healthy accountant himself, Jay Moore. Until next time, make it a great day.